women. As I was doing that and we were thinking about how to scale this and how to increase the impact, and initially my personal goal was that, everybody should learn how to code and take advantage of the opportunities in the field of technology. But with time, I came to the realization that not everybody is going to learn how to code. For one, we don't even have the capacity to train every young person to learn how to code. So what is the next best thing? How can we use technology to increase employment opportunities? So that was really the way I approached the problem. And then now I started looking at the informal sector. It was largely ignored. While I was running Akira-Chicks, I also helped a lecturer do a research on how workers in the informal sector use technology. And honestly, at that point, for me, I used to be aware of Jua Kali workers, but it's like I didn't see them. Like when I was doing the research, I'd pass streets and now I started recognizing them. I was like, oh my God, these kids have been standing here this whole time and I never saw them. So one, I realized that to me, the informal sector was largely invisible. And I thought like, okay, so for many people, and as they're thinking about jobs, as we're thinking about gig workers, people in the informal sector are usually a second thought. So that's now when I started thinking, how can we use technology to improve service delivery, improve access to jobs for workers in the informal sector? Now, I must say, when I first started, I have a technology background. And they say when the hammer is your tool, every problem looks like a nail. So my first reaction was, let's build an app. So I quickly realized that, okay, I hadn't done market research. I didn't even know where the workers congregate, why are they always together? If there's something you notice, Jua Kali workers are always a collective. They're always together, So now I had to, now those are the challenges I was experiencing, learning how the informal sector works. And I must say that is something that I am still learning. So what has been the progress so far? So we have managed to actually place some workers in certain jobs. But as I've been looking at scaling, one of the things I realized was I have to work with companies in the informal sector to build this solution. So really that's where I am right now, working with companies in the informal sector, small and medium enterprises, helping them in using technology to help them, basically digitizing their operations. And this, by helping now companies in the informal sector, we are helping them, train workers, vet workers, and also place the workers. So just basically digitizing and I'll use this term formalizing, but yeah, just helping them structure their business using technology. Yes, I think I've answered.
Yes, that's quite interesting that you're helping them structure the business using technology. And, if I come to you, Amadou, Gebeya, $2 million USD in seed round investment, and you didn't stop there, you got a 500,000 USD funding for scholarships for aspiring female software engineers. So I'd ask you the same question. Now that we see you growing and extending to other countries, what is the driving force behind Gebeya? And what needs are you addressing? And to what extent have you addressed this need? Amadou.
All right, thank you, Judith. So the philosophy really behind Gebeya was to sort of help build the African business ecosystem, participating in making it more competitive. That's how we set out the company to sort of flourish, okay? What we did realize is in order to make Africa more attractive to within the continent, be able to trade, trust each other, build great businesses, and compete globally, you have to have stronger businesses. And for every ecosystem that you see, well, at least from what I understood, you have three pillars. You have the businesses themselves. You have the capital that would fuel the business, whether it is through funding or self-funding or in the case that you just mentioned, the VC funding that we got. And then you have the talent. And the talent for me is the most relevant piece of the puzzle. Without talent, you can't build successful businesses. So we decided to build a talent infrastructure company, which is essentially producing the best of the talent we can to support businesses to build better products and services for their customers. That is really what Gebeya is about. What we are able to do fairly quickly, I would say, past 3-4 years, on the supply side, we're able to make sure that we have exceptional people, not just from the technical skills, but from also the soft skills. Anything from mindset, integrity, being able to work with, because when we place you at a client, either whether it's on site or remote, we need you to be responsible, all those different kinds of skills that make you sort of competitive in that sense. So we're able to do that fairly successful, hence why we raise money both from a public side to private investment. On the demand side also, we're able to attract anywhere from startups to small businesses to big corporations like telcos, which is pretty much one vertical we're very focused on, because we understand even post-COVID or during COVID that some of the most successful companies are telco companies. Most people work from home, they have to get internet bandwidth, they have to get different kinds of services to operate. So we've seen that we are gradually growing that side of the business, which is our marketplace, which is building more businesses, helping more businesses build better products and services by placing our talents to them. So COVID was sort of a shocker for everyone. We're lucky enough to raise money right before COVID. So we're one of those lucky companies. But what we were able to do fairly quickly internally within the first couple of weeks of March, we decided to work remotely. Well, we were already a distributed team. We operate in 3 different continents: Africa, Europe, and North America. In Africa, we're in Kenya, Senegal, and Ethiopia, Ethiopia being our headquarter. In Europe, we're in Sweden, UK, in the US. In North America, we're in Canada and in the US. So we fairly quickly were able to sort of establish a successful remote environment for us to work internally with staff. From the talent's perspective, most of them were working remote with the clients anyway, to the exception of 1 or 2 clients who wanted their talent to be on site. They took on the responsibility of allowing those talents to also work remotely. So far, we've seen that this is a very positive impact, COVID, on the flip side of being very bad for the entire world, for businesses like ours.
Okay, that's good to hear that for you, COVID hasn't caused a negative shift, that you more or less have your operations still ongoing. Judith, has that been the same for you? Has COVID impacted you positively or negatively?
I would say, let me say, like at the beginning of COVID, some of the companies who we were talking to implement the system became very hesitant, because now they didn't know how long COVID is going to run. So they didn't want to spend money. At that point, everybody wanted to save money. But right now, I must say that there has been more interest, especially since now people can see that really digitizing is the way to go. One of the key things is now we can, but it's not advisable for workers just to be congregating and going to find out, like by the time they pay transport, to find out whether a job is available. So now what many construction companies can do is just contact the workers. They can actually use our system to contact the workers where there's a job and also make the payments and basically just digitize and structure their operations. So right now, I must say that there is definitely more interest. So I can't say that it has been negative. It has been very challenging, especially for different companies and for different people, but it's also been an opportunity for us, as people have seen that really technology is the way forward. And even for those people who were very hesitant and were like, this thing works, it's been working, for this long. Now they're like, okay, we have to innovate. We have to, because the situation demands that. And I believe that the new normal, we're not going back to the old way of life. So yes, for us, it has actually presented a great opportunity. And we have been focusing on the construction sector mainly. And now I see other people who are dealing with day workers are now even interested in our system now. So yeah, I think it's actually positive for us in the long run.
Okay. And I'm glad to hear from both you and Amadou that this presents opportunities, because the question that arises anytime we bring up the gig economy or gig work is it real work? You know, do you get an opportunity for professional development? Is it real work? Now, if I turn to you, Angela, I know that you do a lot of work. You know, you are an author and a speaker, and, you know, we can name you as the gig economy guru. I was looking at an article that you authored recently, or I think it was late last year, actually. The good, the bad, and the ugly about the gig economy. And I think sometimes that's actually the kind of focus that we should have towards the gig economy. But, you know, are there real opportunities in the gig economy?
Good morning,
Angela.
everybody. And thank you, Judith, so much for the invitation to join you guys. And yes, there are tons of opportunities in the gig economy. And, you know, I'm a US representative. So when I talk about the gig economy, I talk about professionals being able to secure contracts from small companies, solopreneurs, all the way up to enterprises in English-speaking countries. And the opportunities are so real, Judith, that in some countries we can document where there has actually been numbers of individuals, large numbers, that have actually been taken out of the Philippines or Afghanistan, where we have some gig workers who are reporting they were making, say, $3 a day, and now they're making $3 an hour. And what that can do for individuals and families and also nations. So I'm really interested in, you know, supporting how the whole continent of Africa can come together and capitalize on this, because this is the deal. It's a global economy. So you have a job in the gig economy in any nation in the world if you've got certain skills. You should tell people you nice size contracts in one of the English speaking countries. There are a few things that you have to do. Of course, you need to have a good command of English, and then you need reliable high-speed internet. And I know for many of the countries in Africa that can present a problem, but you're going to need a good internet source. You're also going to need to talk to your government and the contracts that are available for you to make sure that all of your legal bows are tied, and so that the American or the UK company feels very comfortable in hiring you. So you want to make sure legally you've got everything in place. And then, of course, have a payment system that's going to convert the currency. So I was listening to a number of people on the Upwork platform complaining about how long it takes them to just get their payment system together with the conversion going from different countries. But whatever country you target, you need to make sure that you've got that right payment system for you. And then the other thing that happens a lot is for some of the professionals, people call it a race to the bottom. Means the professionals are underpricing their services, and so the whole industry will suffer. So I always tell people, when you're dealing with, you know, depending on what nation you're coming from, when you're dealing with English-speaking organizations, you need to find out what is a reasonable rate for them. And even if it's 3 or 4 times what you would charge in your home nation, you need to still charge those same rates. Because if you're charging too low, they're going to think that you don't have the expertise to do the job. And if you're charging just that right amount, you're going to increase your net worth and cash flow. And then also you're going to be able to get more higher paying clients. So there is a lot of opportunity in the gig economy, Judith. I think there's going to be more with COVID. You hit the nail on the head when you said companies are going to be looking for ways to get talent to complete their projects without making that permanent commitment. So I'm really excited to be here and to learn more, because I think together we can create, you know, so much in the whole continent of Africa, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay, thanks, Angela. That's interesting. You actually wrote a book called Doing the Hustle Without the Hustle. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Which speaks to what you've told us about the opportunities in the gig economy. And so, Timothy, you are the guru, another guru here on the gig economy. You have been, you know, doing the actual work, and you are also representing other gig workers in Kenya. So what has your experience been in terms of the resources that are needed to do, you know, what Angela calls profitable or you know, rewarding gig work? What resources are needed? What have you seen people needing? You know, we talk about pricing, and most of the time, the Africans you see on these gig platforms price very low. I get a sense that sometimes they're there feeling like maybe we're not supposed to be here, maybe we don't belong here. But you know, the one thing you notice is that the price low, and a simple search on a platform like Upwork is going to bring you loads of people before it brings you anybody from the continent. So, Timothy, what is needed here?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for all the found time to be here. I hope this will be the first of many. Yeah, so as you've heard, I'm Timothy Munene. I'm the chairman of Upwork, the Online Professional Workers Association of Kenya. And yes, I've been in the industry for 8 years now. I started off as a writer, and I'm still a writer with my own company. My company is Trulink Solutions. So we have a writing agency, and we also provide linkages to quality services, quality online services. Yes, so good question, Judith, about what happens. What happens that we find that the talents in Kenya are pricing so low, and maybe they're not doing so well out there. And yes, there's a lot of underlying issues, stereotyping, and wrong mindset among many of the freelancers in Kenya. But that being said, there are also very many who have been able to make it. And so what makes the difference? So I'll just go through some of the main things that are very critical in ensuring that an individual gig worker, freelancer, is able to be successful in their career. Because again, freelancing is a career just like any other, and there is growth that needs to be enhanced, and there are some things that you need to do to be able to grow your career effectively. So one is quality. So the freelancing industry is all about quality. Once you have good quality, you'll be able to attract good clients, and you'll be able to attract good rates. So how do you get the good quality? So in the freelancing industry, I like what Judith said, and I think what Amadou also, they're involved in a lot of capacity building. This is building the skills of the freelancers so that they can be able to have a good offering in the industry. So if you have good quality, definitely you'll be able to get good clients. So once you have the good quality, how are you able to showcase it out there? That's another thing. After you have the good quality, then you need to have a good platform where you'll be able to show the clients out there that you have the good quality. One way of doing it is social media. And in social media, we all know about LinkedIn. So a good LinkedIn profile is a good way to go to be able to showcase your talent out there. There are other platforms. Personally, I started with platforms. We know the popular platforms that are global. You know, the Upworks, the Freelancers, there's what you call it, Trev for transcriptions. They're different platforms for specific skills, but we have the Upworks and the Freelancers and the Fivers, which take on board all kinds of freelancers. So these are other platforms where you can go online, register and have a good profile where clients can come and meet you. So yes, now you have the quality and you have showcased it out there. Another thing you need to have is soft skills. Now, this is one area that Africans are really lacking in. And I liked what Amadou said, that they also try to enhance skills to do with the soft skills, because yes, you may have the quality, you may have a good platform where you're showcasing your skill, but there'll come a time when you need to interact with the client. You need to be convincing. You need to have to build a rapport with them so that you can be, so for you to get consistent work from the client. So soft skills and business skills, knowing how to market yourself. So these are other skills that are critical, and these are things that need to be developed to the freelancers in Africa. So yes, now you have the skills, you're working, you're communicating well with your clients, but then you need to grow. And this is another major problem we have with freelancers. We have a lot of stagnation among freelancers where they just remain in one spot. So how do you grow? How do you upskill? You need more training. Yeah. So if most of the freelancers start with basic level skills, it's good to upgrade your skills so that you can be able to go to more advanced skills. Today, we're encouraging, even as Upwork, we are encouraging freelancers to go to the, what do you call it? Let's call them the high-level skills. Mostly these are tech skills, the AIs, the blockchain. These are the jobs for the future, the fourth revolution jobs. And I think this is what also Amadou is doing. Yeah, these are the jobs for the future, and we need to be marketable. Like Africa, we do not need to stick to the low-paying jobs. Let's go for these high-level jobs, which will be able to pay well and even improve our lives. After that, I think then the freelancer needs to think about formalizing their business, going corporate. Let's not stick to being just a freelancer. Think about how can I grow my business and become another Angela with her own company that's doing great in the gig world. Thank you. Thank you, Judith.
Thank you so much, Timothy. So I'd like to open this up to our participants to ask questions or to give us some comments. And as we're doing that, I just want to announce that we've got some people trying to get in and cause disturbance. So I'm going to be very, very particular on who I admit. Yeah, you probably have had some of it happening, but I will try my best to make sure that we have legit people on here. That is what technology does. It gives you strengths, and it also exposes you in one way or another. So participants, if you have questions, let me know. You can put your hand up or you can type the question in the group chat, and I will give you an opportunity to bring that up. Now, as we are waiting and as we are getting onto that, the question that I always have is that, Timothy, you've laid out a very complex or very well laid out, steps of, what a gig worker needs to do. And I often ask myself, whose responsibility is it to provide the resources that are needed by gig workers? So we can tell gig workers, yeah, take the initiative, go out there and grab all these opportunities, price well, like Angela mentioned, get all the technical skills that you need. But who provides these resources? How can they come in a way that, gig workers are able to reach, to access them and utilize them, for the better of their work?
I guess that's for me. Yes. Yeah. So where do the freelancers get the resources? Unfortunately, for the longest time, I think freelancers have been on their own. Yeah. They've been doing this all by their own and trying to find ways of getting the resources that they need to grow their skills and their career. But things are changing. There are many organizations that are now coming up and trying to support and help in even capacity building of the freelancers. Now, I might want to say that when you look at the countries that are quite developed in terms of their freelancing industry, talk about the Philippines, Pakistan, India, there's been a lot of government input, and this is quite lacking in Africa. And I think this is something that also needs, as Africa, we need to step up in that, because you find that countries like India, they took a deliberate step to enhance the industries. They put in policies, yeah. They helped, they put in financial support to build platforms, BPOs, like in the Philippines, the BPOs, yeah. But in Africa, we are lacking that. So we just we just go on our own paths in Kenya, in Africa, but that should not be so. But there are companies that are coming up, organizations now. I'm happy to say in Kenya we have Upwork, the association. That's one of the reasons that we decided to come up with the association. But then the association is very young. We just founded it last year, and our main purpose was to try and bring visibility to the Kenyan freelancer, because we, as Judith said, there are many Kenyans who are professionals in the gig economy, but they're struggling. So we need to come together, have a voice, and see if we can be able to bring on even partners that can be able to bring these resources, resources that are needed to help our freelancers grow their careers.
Okay. Okay, that's good to hear. So I'll open this up to our participants. If you have a question, you can ask now.
Judith, could I also respond to that question?
Yes, go ahead, thanks.
Yeah, so on the question, on your question, who is to provide these resources, I think we also need to ask whose interest is being served, you know? So like Timothy has given us the example where the workers are the ones who now take care of themselves, like they make sure that they have the skills, but also now he's also brought the aspect of government intervention. Because it's also in the government's interest to have as many young people employed, gainfully employed, you know, because it's for the benefit of the economy. And also ultimately, you know, when more young people are employed, I do believe that to some extent we also have some sense of one, better quality life, and also sense of security, you know. So it is actually in government interest. So I do believe there's a part for government to play when it comes to policies. When you're looking at vocational training, it could also be in our education system, because we're talking about things like communication skills and social skills, entrepreneurship skills. Then I also be in this capacity building. So take, for example, when we're looking at it now from the Juakali sector, you know, for the platform, one, you want to grow, but you're only, just like Amadou said, a business is only as good as its talent. So for a platform, you're only as good at delivering a service as your talent is. So it is actually in your interest to make sure that the talent in your company can actually deliver. And so in such cases, platforming, and then now when we also look at marginalized groups involved in online work in the digital economy. Take for example, refugees doing some online work. Now in such cases, it could be social enterprises or NGOs, you know, because we have to also look at life beyond the refugee camp when they go back to their countries. How can they actually contribute? So I think when it comes to who is supposed to invest, we also need to look at whose interest that is served. Invest further in this, yeah.
Thanks, Judith. And
excuse me, why did you change my name to Forrest? I'm not James Forrest. Who changed my name to James Forrest?
Hello. Okay, Dadmawi, you had a question. Please go ahead.
Sure. My question was, to Judith, but anyone is welcome to speak. So how were you able to establish trust between your technology and the construction center, as that is very physical and having most workers congregate? Or this could also be between like how your technology establishes trust between freelancers and the construction sector.
That's a very good question. Especially when we look at gig work in the construction industry is largely based on trust. So this is why we decided to take the approach of working with companies in the informal sector. So there are already collectives that have been established. Some of them are associations, some of them have actually formed companies where workers bid for jobs and they get jobs and they work together as a collective. So we are working with them to build, to digitize their systems and to learn their needs. Because when I first started, we actually did a research, and now from actually working with the construction companies, I do realize that what we were told at the beginning was not accurate. What can I say? There's what people say and there's what people do. And you know, what they do most of the time does not lie. So yeah, that's really how we've been able to build trust, really by co-creation, building the system together with construction companies.
Thank you, Judith. Amadou, you want to contribute to this too? You want to add on to what Judith has said?
Yeah, but not on the construction industry side.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But you mentioned it. The trust is everything, because when you provide service, service is more complex than a product, right? When you buy a product, you buy a product. You buy an iPhone, you know it's an iPhone. You know, it's the transaction is straightforward, right? But when you buy a service from a plumber or construction worker or software developer, you're looking at this person and say, do I really trust this person to do this work? And usually, what do? You get referrals, you get call your friends, do you know someone? So it's a little bit more complex. And sometimes, some of these professionals, they take advantage of the situation. Depends on the hourly rate they bill you with, what they kind of exaggerate the work they're gonna do, especially mechanics. You know, you need a muffler change, they wanna change your entire engine, what have you. So the complexity of that is all around trust. So the key is, how do you make your talent from a platform perspective be trusted by the client? That's the greatest challenge. You're doing our vetting process, meaning the process for which we identify a talent that we can put on our platform. We make sure that we making sure Africa is competitive. In order to make sure Africa is competitive, we believe the business must be more competitive. We believe that we need to provide talent with the right mindset and skills. So we install the value of the culture, which we work really, really hard on for almost 2 weeks to refine, to make sure they understand that. So we get you to, I believe, two weeks, 1 or 2 weeks of vetting process, making sure you understand that. Then we communicate that back to the client and say, these are the values and they can be trusted. Because with that communication and telling a story around the talent and a story around how we vet these things, I think has worked out pretty well for us. But trust is the key.
I totally agree with that, in the gig economy and the nature of the remoteness, trust is key. And, you know, you might have seen this scenario in the African market with e-commerce, where there's no trust. You know, I was speaking in a different forum, and I was saying that it's two-way, that, you know, the suppliers don't trust the buyers don't trust the suppliers. And, you know, when it comes to gig work, I think the earlier we establish a trust, and in this case, trust comes from delivering quality services, and, you know, the earlier we establish it, the better for us. I'll move on to Angie. Angie, you have a question about your EdTech startup. Please go ahead.
Yeah, as Judith said, my name is Angie, and I run an EdTech startup. And we sit in the intersections between the providers of kids activities who are essentially freelancers and parents and families. We have been operating in Kenya, and now we are ready to go live in the UK. We have a few providers already signed up. And the challenge that we're having is when it comes to prices. We can see that there is a considerable difference when it comes to how much the UK providers are charging. You can see someone who's charging guitar lessons even going up to £200 per term. And when you look at Kenya, it's about 500 shillings per session, and they just do 10 sessions, so that comes to 5,000 shillings. So there's a very big difference when it comes to charges, and this is something that we've been struggling with. How do we, as a platform, try and balance this out so that the UK providers don't feel like they'll have to charge lower and the other providers are undercutting them, and the Kenyan providers also look like what they're charging is like a quality kind of service. It's a very tricky place we're finding ourselves in, and I just wanted to hear thoughts from the team of how people have experienced this and how they've managed this.
Okay.
Judith, can I?
Yes, go ahead, Angela.
So what a number of US platforms are doing, because they have like a similar kind of thing, the market is country specific. So, you know, if it's, you know, all in Kenya or all in the UK, that market is going to determine the pricing. But what a number of US platforms are figuring out is that there needs to be some basic education that will guide people with how they charge. So helping them understand the value of certain expertise, what average ranges are, because you don't want to tell people what to charge, because then you're getting into another, you know, can of worms. But giving the freelancers some understanding of what their value truly is and helping them to level themselves out. You know, this is sort of like a beginner stage, this is intermediary, and this is and it's high, and this is sort of like the range of what, you know, people are charging and what the market will pay. But if you're, you know, whatever market you're in, the market is going to determine what the market is going to pay. One of the other issues is, you know, customer feedback. So if you've got, you know, you've come up with a system where people can self-rate themselves, and they say, oh, I'm an expert at whatever, and actually they're a novice, their customers are going to rate them as a novice. And so that's going to actually bring their prices down to where their prices need to be. But the market itself is going to help regulate. And I do know that there's sometimes jealousy, because even in, you know, some of the English speaking countries, some of the freelancers complain, you know, about people coming on their platforms and, you know, charging $3 and $4 and $5 for something that they're trying to charge 25 to 30. But we also know that on some of the English speaking platforms, they now have the capacity for the buyer to say they want an in-nation applicant only, because, you know, maybe there's the language issue or whatever it may be, but you know, there's that possibility. But some of it you can't avoid, but some of it you can help guide. Did that help, Angie?
Yeah, that helps. I like how the classifications between a novice and an expert and that kind of thing to help guide the prices. But what we are hoping to create is a marketplace where you can have a child in Ghana taking a Japanese class from someone in Japan. You know, it's not really going to be market specific.
Okay.
So it's a bit tricky for us.
Yeah, let me contribute to that. So it's been a challenge, and the big challenge is because most of these platforms, like maybe if I would ask Angie, where do you source your talent from? How do you source your talent?
We have to handpick them. We handpick them, we interview them, we test out some of the sessions ourselves.
Yeah, because mostly these global platforms, like we mentioned, the Upworks and the Fivers, the market is global and it's open to everyone. So one of the thinking that we've been having is, and that I came up with Trulink Solutions, my company, which is a marketplace that for now we only have Africans. So we are thinking this is a way that we can be able to educate the freelancers on the platform on the prices that they can charge. So the competition here is not as cutthroat as it is in the global platform, because as it is in the global platforms, you have people from 2 different countries. So if I may say, because of the cost of living in the Western countries and maybe Africa or Asia, we are able to charge less. But again, we charge ridiculously low prices. So, but what if we had our own marketplace, our own platforms where we can be able to regulate the rates? And in this way, we can also be able to facilitate our own freelancers and enable them to even charge better and even become more marketable, because the platform allows clients from anywhere, from global clients to come in, but at least we have our own people who we can be able to protect them in terms of rates and in terms of even their relationships and the sustainability of their careers. Yeah, so but the issue of having our own platforms in Africa, our own marketplaces, I think that can be the solution.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Timothy. Yeah, so what you are describing is actually a thought that has been shared a number of times as this one of the ways in which we can address some of the very, very specific problems facing us in the gig economy. So as we move on, I'd like to encourage our participants to continue writing their questions on the chat. We will move on. And the one question actually that I wanted to ask, and this question I wanted to ask Amadou and Judith, is that as we talk about opportunities in the gig economy, we've talked a lot actually about the demand side opportunities. But what opportunities do you see on the supply side? And I'm not trying to bring you competition, directly, but what kind of opportunities do you see in that space?
Want me to go first or Judith? Ladies first?
Yes.
Ladies first, go ahead, Judith.
Okay. Opportunities. So yes, I've been focusing a lot on the construction sector, but I'll now just do something more broadly. I'm seeing a lot more opportunities when it comes to AI and machine learning, because many companies are looking to build like training data for their products. Companies like Uber or it's just slipped my mind. But anyways, many technology companies are starting to use artificial intelligence and machine learning, and this needs a lot of data to help machines make these decisions. So when looking at the gig economy, on the lower level, I see more opportunities for image labeling and data labeling. And hopefully, as more young people get to do those jobs, my hope really is that there can be more training so that they can get more skills and possibly even graduate into, AI professionals. Like, that's really what my hope for many of the young people who are starting to do those kind of jobs. I see that there are a number of platforms within Kenya that are looking towards that. I could name I think Cloud Factory, there's Fast Tagger, and other companies trying to get into that space. So that's really around technology. Then now when we look at, basically, I believe that in the gig economy, the opportunity is for any skill or any service that people want to delegate. That is an opportunity in itself. For example, I have a friend who's just starting a business, helping people organize their spaces, you know. And for me, that was really interesting. He's actually got a market for that, you know. And then now if you look at, you know, artisans, service provision, coding, you know, cooking, basically when we look at the supply side, like I said, anything that people need to get done, but somebody doesn't want to do, and then two things that need to be done that maybe people don't have time to do, that is an opportunity in the gig economy.
Thanks, Judith. Yeah, Amadou?
Yeah, so I guess if I cheat a little bit and rephrase your question in the way I think, so I would think of it more of a future of platforms in Africa, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing is for sure, I'm loving what Angela is saying, because she understands that, so the gig economy has been prevalent in the US since the creation of Upwork and the rest. Upwork is 20 years old. So there's a market that's been built, right? The market is there. There's so much you can learn from. I actually got a couple of coaches in the US that you know, gave me information about how do we sort of pivot, you know, or not exactly copy what the US does. How do we leapfrog our own model of building platforms and stuff? Angela, I will take you up on that to be one of my coaches. I'll send you an email about that. But so then I look at Africa. So rest assured that there's going to be thousands and thousands of gig economy platforms in Africa in the future. You can't avoid it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because there's so many jobs to be created, there's the only, look at the young people in Africa, they all hustle. The majority hustle. There's not enough big companies that can hire people to give them full-time jobs. So they have to hustle, selling on the street. Again, forget the digital jobs, just hustling, right? So if you see that opportunity and you have the government on one side understanding this would be the fastest way to leapfrog jobs, whether we comply with social value that it brings, healthcare system that, you know, pivot and changes to facilitate healthcare for these young people, that's a huge opportunity that you can create an entire industry just on that. Mm-hmm. On the other side, the young people, if they see something that can get them a job, and if you look at the generation that's below 30 years old, the attention span is very small. The traditional job of staying in a company for 5-10 years, hoping to retire, no, that's not what they believe. They work in companies for 2 years, they bounce and do something else. So you have those dynamics. So what are we, like 4 or 5 people here talking about gig economy? I would predict in the next 5 years, you'll have hundreds of us doing that. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not competition because the supply is here. It's just raw talent that you need to shape up in terms of, like we say, soft skills and special technical skills, you know, training somebody in machine learning, 1 year you'll be up and running. We train you 3 months of soft skills, you'll be up and running. So the supply is here. So we never compete on the supply side. The only thing we're going to compete on is on the demand side. Mm-hmm. So now, if you know that the competition is going to be here, what are the platforms that are going to win? So you look at the US, it went from the Upwork, we're going to do it all. We're going to provide all kinds of different types of services from talent all over the world, creating all kinds of things. Upwork is still struggling after 20 years, not making profit. But then you have some specific platform-specific verticals, right? Let's say digital marketing platforms, or they focus on specific industries who do turn around in terms of revenue, even profit, even go IPO faster than Upwork would ever do. So for the innovation now on this gig platform, especially in Africa, we watch that and say, why do I need to create a platform? I think Angie was asking, we will provide talent, you know, from Africa to serve anyone. That's very broad, and you're gonna burn a lot of cash. You're gonna have extreme operational things that you need to worry about. We've seen it in Andela, right? Yeah. There's so many things you're gonna have to deal with if you just shoot and hoping that it stick. You have to specialize, and you can specialize at the country level, which is what Timothy was saying. You can specialize on a vertical, you can specialize on industry, right? And then focus on that, be the best at it. Again, remember what I first said is we need to make African business more competitive, but you better be best at one simple thing. So I think the innovation is around specializing gig economy platforms, specializing region. For example, I'm not trying to be everywhere in Africa. I'm only in 3 African countries after 4 years because I understand those markets. It's where the demand is telling me to come. I'm only focused on software development right now. I'm not into, say, accounting services, legal. I may get there. So that's where I see the innovation in the future for gig platform.
Okay. And that's actually quite interesting, you know, because it leads us on to our next question, which is the challenges that we are facing in the gig economy. Amadou, you rightly say that, you know, whether, you know, with COVID or no COVID, the gig economy is going to grow and it's going to grow exponentially. And, you know, for me, from where I sit, you know, we're already seeing some problems. You know, we're already seeing issues as the gig economy continues to grow. And we've talked about some of these issues. You know, we're talking about the skills, we're talking about, you know, the regulation not moving alongside the growth of the gig economy. You know, for example, in Kenya, we have, you know, the government showing full support for the gig economy. There's even a gig platform that the government has, you know, supported to come up called Ajira. And then on the regulatory side, you have digital tax that just undoes a lot of the development. So there are many challenges. And I'd like to hear from you. You know, I'll start with you, Timothy, because, you know, you have a group of gig workers under you. And I know that we are all in our areas of gig work and in our areas of talent, you know, conversant with what these challenges are. And we've talked about some of them. But, you know, for this session, it would be important for us to just start, you know, processing how we're going to address these challenges so that we create, as we go along and as we create a gig economy in our areas of expertise, that, you know, it is going with the right fit. It is a right fit. We're not having to undo our progress so that we can either, you know, rectify some regulatory issues or rectify some skill issues or rectify some labor, you know, gaps. But I'm just interested to hear your thoughts as far as these challenges are concerned. What are the key challenges that we must address immediately? Timothy.
Thank you, Judith. So I'll start with the big one, the big problem. Amadou has just said, our biggest problem is not the supply, it's the demand.
Yeah.
So in Kenya, let me talk about Kenya. In Kenya, we have so many freelancers. We have all the talent. But the biggest problem is how do we get the jobs? Yeah, we have the jobs are out there, but we're not getting them. And this is what leads to this ridiculous pricing and everything. So that's one of the biggest problems that we're still trying to tackle. And I believe even in this session, that's the problem we're trying to tackle. How do we make Africa more marketable so that you can be able to attract more jobs? So because of this inconsistent supply of jobs to individual freelancers, there is that inconsistent income for the freelancer. So the inconsistent income makes them not have very stable lives, and you find that it's still in the mindset of many of the Africans, even those who have skills that they can use in the gig economy, they still think that the freelancing career is a part-time thing, as they look for a more permanent solution, which is a full-time job, employment that is. But that should not be the case. So if you can be able to tackle that problem of inconsistent job supply, then you have consistent incomes, then I think it will be great for freelancers. So another challenge that we have is what Judith, you've mentioned. There's policies. Government policies are not favorable for the gig economy workers. For the longest time, I think government corporations have not really addressed this group of gig workers as a major category. So, but as we're saying, as also Amadou was saying, this is going to change, and it's changing. I think in future, the bigger percentage of people will be gig workers. So it's a high time that policies are made to favor them. Tax issues should be addressed. As it is now, there's a lot of gray area in terms of taxing. There's a lot of double taxing, especially with digital people who are in the digital space. So these are things that need to be addressed so that they cannot negatively impact the gig workers. Another problem maybe we can talk about is the issues of benefits, social protection, social security. We know that the traditional jobs, people are always benefiting from these benefits, but as an online worker, for example, in Kenya, it's very hard to go out there and get a loan to grow your company or to grow your business. Yeah, so these are some of the things that the gig workers are still struggling with, and hopefully we can find ways of addressing them. And again, in Kenya, the association is one way of being able to tackle this, because as an association, then you have a voice. You know, in the past, online workers have always worked as individuals, so they're not able to advocate for their own needs. But as an association, we can be able to come together and approach government and approach other organizations to push for some of these benefits for the online workers.
Thank you very much, Timothy. Angela, I know you also have quite a bit to contribute in this area now that you are heavily involved in developing skills for gig workers. Please go ahead.
So a couple things I wanted to just piggyback on. Amadou was talking about, the specialization of the marketplace, and, totally with you, because when I did my research for my book, I looked at a couple hundred gig sites and kind of vetted them and, categorized them. And what we're finding is that the very niche sites, like Judith, your construction, you're starting there. That's perfect, because you're going to know that market so well that you're going to be able to just really expand and blow that thing out. And so we're finding, like in the US and also in the UK, and also in South Africa, those sites that are getting very niche down and specific are able to target and grow much faster. And like an Upwork, I mean, their expenses for trying to reach everybody in the whole world who does everything are so off the chain. So that, I think, is really good. The lesson that we all get from the UK, I think they're the leaders in this, is around this whole, the social infrastructure for the gig economy. And it's so bad that, there's no delineation between like ridership and delivery services, which are usually low paying jobs, versus the professional kinds of jobs that, a lot of us are talking about. Those are two different things. So in the UK and in the US and even in Australia, when we are building businesses, there is no safety net for a business builder. And so what's happening is, because of COVID, a lot of the countries now are saying, well, these solopreneurs, these micro business owners, they need to have some safety net. And that clouds the waters, because now, are you a business or are you an employee? So some of what we're trying to do is make that differentiation. And I think all of the nations are going to have to look at, how do they categorize the different way work gets done in the world? Because it's very different today than it was 50 years ago when they came up with these antiquated structures. They no longer apply. And then the last thing I just wanted to say about, the demand side of things is that, in the US, we're lacking this too, and we're just starting to see this happen, is that there are groups that are coming up, associations, as well as groups of freelance organizations. They're getting organized, and they're starting to go after some of the enterprise work. And what we're saying to the individual freelancers is, you need to build, I use the word gigpire. So, you need to do your own ecosystem building, so that now you're going after larger contracts. you're not just going after, I'm a graphic design person, but you're going after, you know, everything from the graphic design to the music to the art, you know, you're going after the whole thing. So when we as freelancers begin to approach things as an ecosystem, we're going to get higher contracts. And then the associations that are being formed around the world to support gig workers, understanding the difference between the lower paid and the professional. On the professional side, going to enterprises and say, look, you know, this is good for the economy. If the solopreneurs and micro business people go under, the whole economy is going to crash. So going to them and saying, look, we've got certain standards in place. We're hiring the top. We've got, you know, from soup to nuts to be able to meet your needs. What else do you need us to do so that we can go after some of those enterprise contracts? One of the things that I was just talking to a representative from Microsoft yesterday about is making sure that freelancers are enterprise ready, so that in every country, that's going to mean a different thing, but that you've got that legal foundation established. You've got a process to capture your customers, market to them, grow it. You've got all of your ecosystem around you. So make sure you start this thing off like you're building a real business, and then you'll be able to get real contracts. So hope that helps.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah. So I just want to draw a difference somewhere here where, you know, there's a category of gig workers, and maybe we didn't represent them very well, but I know that Judith knows who I'm talking about, who, you know, it's low skill, low pay work. And somewhere along the line for this category of workers, the safety net is important. And I think that's really the reference to, you know, when we talk about the ILO statistics, that there's a vulnerable group of people because, you know, it's low skill, low pay. And in addition to that, they don't have any benefits. And I know that this has drawn a lot of discussion around, you know, gig workers, contractors, the employees. And, you know, we've heard about all the Uber wars in different countries, whether, you know, their drivers are contractors, employees, and, you know, what benefits they accrue. And, you know, this discussion has been going on. And, you know, I just want to hear your thoughts about this particular category of gig workers, because they're still, you know, part of the gig economy. And, you know, what are some of the ways that we can address the vulnerability that they stand to face, especially when they're dealing with, you know, international platforms, like we've talked about the likes of Upwork and, you know, Fiverr, even Uber and Bolt. How do we protect them, if I can use that word? Just considering their position, their bargaining power. Most of the times, even associations like what Timothy has, they have formed those, but they don't have a legal basis. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. And, you know, also from our participants, your thoughts on this. Just cue me. You can put your hand up and then I'll give you a chance so we can hear your thoughts. Yeah. Judith, you want to take that? Get us started?
Yeah, I guess I can get you started. That's that's something I've also been thinking about, you know. I must say, for me, on one hand, there's the business goals, you know, trying to be sustainable as a business and making the money. And then there's also now this other social part, which is how might you create like some social protection for the people who are working on your platforms? So it's really been a challenge. One, like I had started before, you know, many times when you see workers in the informal sector, they're always together. Like, for example, here in Kenya, when you come to Ngong Road, you find all these carpenters working together. And then also when you look at mechanics, usually the garages are like right next to each other. You know, it kind of seems counterintuitive because you're competing. Why are you all together? But one of the things I was told by one researcher was they're together because there is social protection within that space. Like if they need financing, if they need help, it's so much easier to go to somebody who actually understands what they're going through or what they need. So for me now, seeing that situation, my question or the thing I'm thinking through right now is, how do you, one, digitize something like that collection, that collective, or two, the other thing is, does it have to be digitized? So how can I as a platform facilitate that kind of communal collective without actually having to digitize it? So I must say, for me, that's really the discussion I'm having right now. Should it be digitized? Or maybe to some extent, maybe digitization is not what is needed, but how do I facilitate that connection? I must say that workers in the informal sector, Juakali workers, already have some informal type of association or collective, to bring themselves together, to advocate for different things, to take care of each other as a way of peer accountability to each other. So now the question is, how does a platform like mine take advantage of that to enable them to grow? Because they have set that up so that they can grow. So to enable them to grow, one, in their career, to negotiate for better salaries, and in the end, like, improve the quality of living. So I must say that's something I have not yet cracked, but that is something that I'm actually thinking about.
Okay, it's a work in progress, clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I'd like to move on to our final question for the day. And as we navigate this pandemic that happened on all of us, Amadou, you're stuck in a place for 3 months, right? So the question the topic of the future of work is one that has come up more than ever. The pandemic has caused us to rethink how we work. And, as we talk about the future of work, I have, participated in discussions about the future of work, and at the same time, observed discussions ongoing in various platforms. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the discussions about the future of work are centered on where, the future of work is going to be. But, as we come to a close of our session today, I'd like to hear from the panelists, where or how do you see the gig economy contributing to the future of work? What impact is the gig economy going to have on the future of work? And to what extent is it going to drive the future of work? And I'll start with you, Amadou. Let's get your thoughts on that and also your closing thoughts for the day.
I pass it on to Angela first because she's seen it in the US.
Yeah.
And I'll piggyback on that. Is that possible?
Okay. Angela's always ready.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is my crystal ball gazing. And I know a lot of people don't believe what, my crystal ball says, because nobody knows the answer, seriously.
True.
But what I really think is that this whole gig economy is getting ready to mushroom.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is we know that COVID-19's got at least a year to play out, at least, right? So companies that are laying off, a lot of companies are going under. Those who survive are not going to want to make those long-term commitments. Like you said, Judith, they're not going to, when they look at their cash flow in the next 2 to 3 months, because a lot of places are closing back down to some extent, they're not going to want to make those full-time commitments, which means that the people who are ready to capture these opportunities, they're going to flourish, I believe, in the next few years. The corporations in the US, some of them have seen how much money they've saved these last couple months, just not so much on their talent side, but they've been looking at their real estate side, how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands they're spending to house people in the same place. And now, so they see that remote work is working to some extent for some workers. They're going to be closing down some of that real estate to keep their cash flow. at hand. So I think the gig economy has a very, very bright future. And I think, Judith, I thank you so much for inviting me and pulling together this panel. My heart is to make sure that Black and brown people around the world get in on this, that they're prepared, that they're educated, that they know how to build gig empires. Because if this is the future of work, we don't want to be left behind. That happens far too often. We're left behind. And you guys are leaders. So, I'm looking forward to, if I can support in creating something in the various nations that's going to provide the education, the support, and we can learn from, the different countries around the world, how we can apply it and what makes sense there. So I look forward to it. Judith, keep doing these. This is great. And I'm here to support and help in any way I can. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Angela.
I think I can step in now. So there's good news and bad news. I'm looking at it from an African perspective again. The good news is there's never been a time opportunity can help Africa sort of just catch up at some level to the rest of the world in terms of work. In the US alone, I think I checked about a couple of weeks ago, there was 40 million people out of jobs. 40 million people. That's a lot of people. Come back to the, to the workforce. But then you look at Africa, I mean, it's a common thing. 40 million jobs in Africa is, unemployment rate is high. We're really used to it. So the question is now, this huge opportunity there. Now, who's looking at it and who's paying attention? Are the governments paying attention? If I was a president right now in any African country, I'll look at this as an opportunity, because even presidents now, they do have the meetings through Zoom, right? I've seen on TV the president of Senegal is having his meetings with his ministers online. Ethiopia, the same. Kenya, the same. Nobody's taking the risk to expose themselves to something. So documents are being circulated in a soft format, and then you signed, and you have logistic systems that go deliver that document. You have Ethiopia, you have delivery system, e-commerce platform popping up in Ethiopia. If you haven't done your research about Ethiopian tech and stuff, this is a huge leapfrog, like beyond your comprehension. Because we don't even have an electronic payment system in Ethiopia that's used like M-Pesa, right? So the opportunity is tremendous. When you're now tied into jobs, the bad news is, how do we prepare for it? Is it because the service face-to-face business is going to be very hard to crack? Because before I trust you to come at my house and do fixing and stuff, I would want at least a company who sent you over to prepare you, with your equipment, you wash your hands, you wear a mask, you do all these different things. So people don't trust people till they come to their house. So whatever platform is supporting those kinds of workers, right? They need to sort of create that trust and saying, our contractors are ready to provide you services in a safe, COVID-safe environment. But for those who are doing digital work, remote work, which is what we do, how do we prepare them to compete again? Because remember when COVID is sort of over, everybody who didn't have a job for the whole period of time or got laid off would come back onto the job market, right? So the job market would be saturated with candidates that you can choose from. But I agree that some corporation will look at their cash flow and say, I don't want to hire full-time anymore. Who can give me the better rate for me to hire you to do a specific job? So from the continent, from the Africans' perspective, we say, how do we position ourselves? Do we even position ourselves globally to compete? Or do we stick to the market in Africa? Wait, are there enough businesses in Africa who are ready to digitally transform? Right? There's a lot of businesses in Africa right now who digital transformation, even the government is doing. So there's nobody has the answer for the future work in Africa. All we're saying is, at least from my perspective, it's bad news and good news. The good news is this large opportunity. The bad news is, are we ready? Or how are we preparing ourselves to be ready? I'm sorry I'm giving you a sort of, not pessimistic view, but more of a cautious way. I'm not predicting the future in this case.
I'd call it a balanced view. Okay, Timothy and Judith, before you give our views, I just want to encourage our participants to write any questions on the chat, because once we finish with our closing comments, we will go to questions before we wrap up the session. So if you have any question, please put it on the group chat and we'll be able to respond to that. Yes, so Judith, let's hear your comments on the future of work, and then we'll also hear from Timothy, as you also give us your closing comments.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for organizing this and for presenting such a diverse group of people working on the gig economy, diverse geographies. It's really been, I've also been learning a lot. So now, future of work, sometimes I really just don't even know how to answer that question. I kind of feel like people just place it on everything nowadays. But anyway, to the best of my abilities, looking at the current situation in Kenya, 80%, the informal sector is 80%, the informal sector is 80% of the economy, yeah? It's the one between the informal and the formal sector. The informal sector is the only one that has been recording job growth for the past 2 or 3 years. And then when you look at the youth population, this can be mirrored in different countries in Africa, where the informal sector is actually the one that's employing more people than the formal sector, and it's the one that's actually growing. Then when we look at the projections of population growth, by 2050, they say that 50% of Africa's population will be under the age of 24. So now, having all those facts in front of us, the formal sector can only grow to a certain extent, you know? So I feel like there is more opportunity in the informal sector for growth. So we need to be investing in this informal sector, even as we look at the future of work. But yet at the same time, when we look at the future of work, and COVID has really accelerated it, it's going to be remote, it's going to be digitally enabled, and there's also going to be a lot of automation. So now the question is our informal sector prepared for that? Just as with COVID, what we'll see is many jobs are going to be replaced, many people are going to lose their jobs. So now the question for us as people in the private sector, civil society, and also possibly for people who are in government who maybe could be on this call, how do we prepare ourselves right now for that future of work? What kind of trainings are necessary? I must even look at our vocational training. What I have noticed is that for most of the different skills and careers, there's actually an element of automation or some machine that people need to learn. But is that actually being taught in school? You know, even if you look at agriculture, which actually occupies the largest portion of the informal sector in a country like Kenya, there's also a lot of automation going on there. So if you look at, like, we have tea pickers in Kericho, there's been this whole argument, will they be replaced by machines? I think it's inevitable. But how do we actually prepare those people who will lose their jobs? I think now that is the question of the future of work. How do we prepare young people, especially in the informal sector, for this future where the work is going to be digitally enabled and more automated? So to some extent, there still has to be a level of training of the use of technology. Like, all the skills need to have some level of automation skills being trained, being included in the curriculum of different vocational institutes, or even in high school. Maybe it can be embedded within our national curriculum, you know. Yeah, and when we look at the future of work, we also have to look at, it goes hand in hand with the future of education, which is something that really needs to, like, it goes hand in hand. Like, we can't have one without the other. Yeah.
Okay,
so
thank you. Thank you. It goes hand in hand with education and a lot of other, you know, capacity building initiatives. Timothy, give us your thoughts on the future of work and your closing comments.
Thank you, Judith. So yeah, I would want to say that this has been awesome. Thank you for such an opportunity. And that, as I said, let this be the beginning of a series of this. So I think my colleagues have said it all. The future of work is, I could say, the opportunities can be they look to be overwhelming. And the thing is, we have to be very careful how we approach this, because you can either make it or break it, depending on how we approach it. For example, like in Africa, as has been mentioned, the opportunities are immense, because as up to now, most of the opportunities have been coming from outside. Africa itself has not, we have not developed the digital demand for gig jobs as it is. But after the COVID era, it is now, we have to, the businesses have to change their game, and they have to now embrace the gig economy. So the opportunities are many, and we really need to approach it carefully so that you can be able to get the best out of this.
Okay, thank you very much. Timothy, thank you very much for that. So I will take some questions before we wrap up the session. Are there any questions from our participants? Okay, so Angela, I know you have an upcoming event. You can take a minute or two to tell us about that, and then we can wrap up.
Well, you know, what we do a lot of is training gig workers. And so we have a income plan training coming up July 15th. If you just get in contact with me, I'll give you my email address. I can send you further information, but it's basically helping people develop a plan so that they earn money. Because we know most of the companies, you know, the gig workers who don't make it is because they don't really have a plan for how they're going to earn. So I'll just put it in there. I don't want to take time for this.
Okay, so thank you very much. Panelists, you were excellent. I appreciate you taking your time and sharing your insights with our participants. I also want to thank all our participants for joining. I hope that this has been what you expected. I hope it has met your expectations and that you have picked some interesting insights. Like most of us have said, the conversations around the gig economy are plenty. You know, it's a whole wide subject, and it is something that needs to continue. This is not the beginning nor the end. We will have other forums and other opportunities where we, you know, advance conversations around the gig economy. But I want to thank each and every one of you today for being awesome, for participating, and keep an eye out for other, you know, upcoming events or upcoming, you know, forums through which we can continue to speak about the gig economy. Like we all said, it is going to grow, and with that growth, there's interest, and there's need to iron out a lot of areas so that the growth is meaningful growth. And especially for us here in Africa, that, as Angela said, we are not left behind, that we are moving and even, you know, creating those opportunities within our continent. So I want to thank you very much and wish you a good day and a good afternoon and a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great day all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.